First of all, thank you very much, Dr. Vergas, for having me today on occasion of Global Day of GNM or GHK. Second, I am here to share with you my experience and my research about metabolic disease, especially type 2 diabetes, and I'm here to say it is not sugar problem. It is not a problem because of dysfunction of beta cell or because of insulin resistance. The second part I would like to share with you, GNM and type 2 diabetes. Once you diagnose your type 2 diabetes, where hemoglobin A1C less than 7%, 3 messages you receive. Disease is incurable, irreversible, and you have to use medication forever. Otherwise, you will lose your kidney, you will lose your vision, you will lose your extremities, and you will die because of complications. Therefore, majority of type 2 diabetes are very keen, conscious about using their medication. But still they lose their kidney, still they lose their vision, still they lose their extremities, still they develop complications. And the reason? Because the treatment is not targeting the primary cause. The treatment targeting the secondary cause, whereas the primary cause remain untreated. So what is the problem? What is wrong? In order to understand, first we need to understand what is normal. Normally, when we have food, the sugar rises up. Beta cell release insulin, which carries the glucose into the cell, and the cell to get energy out of it. And if there is excess glucose, where it is not required by our cells or by our bodies, there is no problem. In our body, there is huge storage department that found in the liver, that found in a adipose tissue, that found in the muscles. So if there is excess glucose, again insulin carries this excess glucose into adipose cells and trigger the receptors. At the surface of adipose cells, there is a specialized protein. They call it glucose transport protein, and its main function to receive the sugar from insulin and transport that glucose inside the adipose cell and store as fats. As long as there is space to store excess glucose inside the adipose cell, inside the liver cell, there is no problems. So the problem starts when adipose cells and the liver cells are fully occupied with fat, where there is no place to store glucose as fats, either in the adipose or in the liver cells. And today you had your food, and normally there is excess glucose, so the insulin, as usual, carries the excess glucose into adipose cells for storage. But this time, the glucose transport is not responding to insulin. In this case, in this condition, we call it insulin resistance. And why glucose transport is not responding, this is very important to understand, because no place. Otherwise, there will be overload of the fat in adipose or in the livers. The overload of the fats, it may lead to serious damage to adipose, and that lead to inflammation and other complications. Adipose cells, it has various functions. It is not only limited for storage function, but it also endocrine gland, and it manufactures and release hormones. And that is why the glucose transport protein resists. It means that once the cells resist is resist for a reason. It means that once the cells resist, it resists to avoid the damage. It means that once the cells resist, it resists for your safety. It means that insulin resistance is not a disease, it's defense mechanism. So now the scenario like this, there is resistance, the glucose remain outside and start build up in the blood. The brain sees this scenario and order beta cells to manage, because if the glucose build up more than 180 milligram per deciliter is no longer called glucose, is turned toxic, and that lead to micro and macrovascular complication. So the beta cells now is squeezing in order to release more insulin to overcome the resistance. And now, under the power of insulin, under the pressure of insulin, the glucose transport protein has to respond and receive the glucose from insulin and store that glucose inside the adipose as fat where there is no place against the cell wishes. Adipose cell is very tiny in size, and since there is no place and more accumulation of glucose and stored as fats, so they will be expansion. They will be increased in size. That is why you'll find his stomach come up and develop central obesity. A part of that, the overload of the fats in the adipose tissue, it leads to serious inflammation. There will be release of interleukin-6, cross factors, serum-reactive protein, which has serious cardiovascular complication. To avoid further damage, the adipose cell start releasing free fatty acid into circulation to keep space. The free fatty acids transport to the liver. In the liver, some part of free fatty acid is stored as fats, and that later on lead to fatty liver. And some part of free fatty acid, the liver converted into LDL cholesterol and sent into circulation. Now, scenario like this: more fat in the liver, more fat in the adipose, it means more resistance. More resistance, it means more pressure of beta cells in order to produce a huge amount of insulin to overcome the resistance, and eventually there will be damage to beta cells, and these patients now officially diabetes where hemoglobin A1C 6.5 or beyond 6.5. So how to manage? That is the reason I have said type 2 diabetes is not sugar problem, it's fat problems. Accumulation of the fat in the adipose, accumulation of the fat in the livers, and that lead to resistance and eventually dysfunction of the beta cell. So the resistance and dysfunction of beta cell is secondary. So once the patient is diagnosed as diabetes, the guideline of treatment to target beta cell with anti-diabetic medication. The diabetes medications, it will trigger beta cell to produce more insulin in order to overcome the resistance, and that cause more pressure to beta cell and further damage. And that is the reason you will find type 2 diabetes, they start with monotherapy and then polytherapy and then insulin therapy, because more dose they add, more medication they add, more damage. And that is the reason it is irreversible. It is incurable. and you have to use medication forever because you are targeting wrong guy.
My second part, GNM or GHK and type 2 diabetes. First of all, when you study GNM first time, you start to experience different perspectives about everything. And you realize that disease is nothing, it's just program. Your chronic problem is nothing, it's just program. And that program activated by your brain in response to a specific feeling, in response to a specific conflict, in response to unexpected shock news. Second, we all believe that the disease starts from mind. We also believe that the healing process starts from mind. But there was no proof until Dr. Hammer came and he proved it on the brain CT scan that our feeling, our emotional, our conflict, it can be visible on CT scans. This is the first time in the history of the medicine that emotional feeling it can be visible on CT scan of the brain, and that is the evidence the disease starts from mind, which affect specific neurons. Today, we are going to discuss type 2 diabetes is just program activating by a specialized neuron in response to a specific feeling or conflict. So, which program? What is the neuron involved? And what is the feeling? In order to understand, first we need to understand what is normal. One of the most greatest mysteries in life, when you look up at space, you'll find these billions of stars, galaxies, and the second mystery in life, the inner space. Behind your eyeballs, you'll find these 100 billions of neurons. And each neurons connect to 10,000 other neurons in order to process and respond to your feeling, to your thinking, to your thoughts. The brain, it is the most remarkable, it is highly remarkable and fascinating organs. Basically, brain is composed of cerebrum, brainstem, and cerebellum. Cerebrum is composed of two parts, right hemisphere and left hemisphere, and they connected through a specialized structure. They call it corpus callosum. Cerebrum is composed of outer part. They call it cerebral cortex, and cerebral cortex is made up from gray matter and white matter. Gray matter is the one that receives information through a specialized finger-like structure. They call it dendrites, and transmit this information to the soma or central body, where the informations process. And process, it means it understood by the brain in order to take actions and response and send or transmit this information through axon to another neurons or to target cells. Whereas the white matter given to gray matter, there is another neuron, they call it white matter, is responsible of communication because its axons is more longer in compared to gray matter, and it's coated with fatty substance, they call it myelin, and that makes the transmission more faster in compared to gray matter. And it gives appearance that white matter is more darker than gray method on CT scan. Let's have a look, CT scan. As example, this is a white matter. It looks more darker than gray matter. This is the gray matter. See? It looks more darker because the axons is coated with the fatty substance, they call it myelins. See? And now we'll discuss about the feeling that triggers which neurons which activate the beta cells and alpha cells, and we'll discuss the biological program that what it has been explained by Dr. Hammers. One of the most important conflicts that it may lead to type 2 diabetes, meal resistance conflict. In meal resistance conflicts, first of all, life is full of problems. It's full of difficulty. It is normal to face problems. And we work hard in order to overcome those difficulty, those resistance. But sometimes the problem, it becomes beyond our power, beyond our force. And that eventually create feeling, and that feeling we call it resistance conflict. Resistant conflict or resistant feeling triggered a specialized neuron in right diencephalon regions, the area that is already exhibited on CT scan. And it shows ring-like structure in the right side of that encephalon. It is the area that is control beta cells. And this triggers beta cells either produce more insulin or less insulin. It may cause hyperfunction or hypofunctions. But in my practice, I have seen that majority during active state, they will be hyperactivity. It means that increased insulin. And the reason of that is because there will be more production or conversion of glycogen into glucose. So they increase the sugars in the blood because the brain during this active stage, it needs more sugars to compensate. That is a biological purpose. And that is triggered beta cell also to produce insulin. So there will be increased sugar, and a part of that is there will be hyperinsulinemia. And if the problem is resolved, there is no problems, because I normally ask and request fasting insulin and C-peptide. If there is distractions, you'll find that it will show through C-peptide where it is normal as far as my experience during active state, but insulin fasting always high. And if the problem resolves, nothing will happen. But if it continue, eventually beta cells continues producing insulin, and that eventually causing destruction of beta cells, and this patient officially develop diabetes. Another conflict, fear and disgusting conflict. It is the feeling of both fear and disgust. Fear and disgust from the cause. Fear from cockroach and disgust from cockroach. Fear from someone, some situation, and disgusting the cause, the someone or situations. When a wife has a fear that her husband might be cheating on, when she has a strong feeling, she develops another feeling that disgusting from. That feelings is triggers a specialized neuron on the left diencephalon that responsible of alpha area of pancreas, which lead to more productions of glucagon because the alpha cells of pancreas responsible of releasing glucagon hormones. So this fields that triggers the alpha center in left diencephalon, which triggers and lead to hyperfunctions of alpha cells in pancreas and lead to more production of glucagon. Glucagon hormone is the one that tells liver to release glucose or conversion of glycogen into glucose, and that lead to increase the glucose in the bloodstream, which triggers beta cell to release insulin in order to restore back the glucose into adipose cells and the liver cells. So if the problem resolved, there is no problems during active stage if it resolves. However, if it's continue, so this is lead to cycles because glucagon is the one that tells pancreas to release glucose, which which trigger beta cell to release insulin, and then eventually it will form vicious cycles. And that is, it will exhaust the beta cell and eventually it damage and lead to diabetes, type 2 diabetes. Not every problem, the root cause is conflict, such like lack of physical activity, consuming high calories foods because of excessive social activity, because of no choice. Even in some area there is no choice available. The only choice is junk food or fast food. And then eventually you start gaining weight. And when you gain weight, there will be change in your physical appearance. The problem it becomes more worse when there is feeling that is he or she feels that is their change in her physical appearance means that is she became less attractive than before. She looks older than before. So she develops self-devaluating. She devaluating herself. And eventually that feeling that is the most important is when it becomes more intense, it will lead to self-devaluation conflict, which affect specialized neurons as cerebral medulla that controls the adipose tissue. And during active stage, there will be ulceration of adipose cells in order to accommodate more fats. More fats means more insulin resistance. And more insulin resistance, it means more pressure of beta cells. During this stage, if the problem is resolved, if you resolve the problem, you are going to save this person from diabetes. If it is not resolved, so there will be more accumulation of fats in adipose. That means more pressures or more insulin resistance. And more insulin resistance, it means more pressures of beta cells in order to produce huge amount of insulin to overcome the resistance. And eventually there will be destruction and diabetes is result.
Conclusion. As far as my research and my studies, type 2 diabetes is not sugar problem. It is fat problem in majority of type 2 diabetes because of accumulation of the fat in the liver and in adipose. In order to treat whether it's type 2 diabetes or hypertension, the first question will ask where is the primary cause? So where is the primary cause in case of type 2 diabetes as per American Diabetic Association? Is beta cell. Dysfunction of beta cell. Destruction of beta cell. So the guideline targeting beta cell with anti-diabetic medication. The anti-diabetic medication or majority of anti-diabetic medication stimulate beta cells to produce more insulin, and that it causes more pressure of beta cell against the resistance, which it causes further damage. And that is the reasons you'll find that the type 2 diabetes start with monotherapy and then polytherapy and eventually insulin therapy, because more you add medication, more there is distractions. And that is reason because we are targeting in wrong direction, whereas the primary cause remain untreated. So in dealing with type 2 diabetes, the most important to find out where is the primary cause, whether it is resistant conflict, whether it's fear and disgusting conflict, whether it's accumulation of the fatty livers, whether it's a deposit, accumulation of the fat in the deposit. That is the most important. Still, there is more to share. Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Vergas. Thank you, organizers, and all the best.